Hello class, this is Joshua Blodgett, and I'm welcoming you to my scaffolding video. It's kind of hard to believe we're here, huh? So close to the end of the semester, and it feels like one of the longest semesters I've ever been in. But here's hoping that we have a good rest of our time, barring any earthquakes, until our winter break. So without further ado, let's get you learned. What is it really? Scaffolding. Scaffolding is a specific way to instruct and assist. It's a way that you use your social ability, and I don't mean it like a skills, like how good you are with social skills. You are using social ability that we as humans have as a way to instruct and assist students, children, who may be having a bit of a tough time going through a process and they're close to mastery. It's a way of taking advantage of what is already hardwired into our brains and using it to impart knowledge. Right. It's a method of instruction from parent to child or teacher to child. It can even be used from adult to adult. It's comprised of 4 parts: a challenging, meaningful goal or problem. Both individuals work toward the same goal. The more skilled individual adjusts the amount of aid that they give, so the less skilled individual has more independent work, such as asking leading questions. It's capped off by confidence-building actions from the more skilled individual, and while they're withdrawing their aid from the less skilled individual's abilities. In layman's terms, this is basically, you're the teacher. You have a student with a problem, any problem. Or if you're in very early childhood, this could be simply a parent and their child, or you and a child and they have a problem. You identify the goal. You work with them, or you have someone who is more skilled than them work with them. The whole point is to have greater skill with lesser skill. The more skilled individual provides aid in the form of their leading questions or anything like that, maybe even small demonstrations, but the entire point is to not do the work for them. It's to engage with them, lead them to feel engaged, and participate, all that. So these 4 things here, you can use these as steps for scaffolding. And this is basically the process boiled down and even almost oversimplified. But when you actually think of it in practice, you're like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. We're basically describing something really easy, but it's just not quite that simple. Okay, well, let's get some stuff out of the way, like where you can use it, which is everywhere. Right now, even, we're doing a form of scaffolding, where I'm trying to bridge a gap between you and I, the viewer, listener, whatever, to give you what I know. But it's a bit of limited capacity because you can't actually see me. And I'm not there to guide you through it. This is an audio thing. More importantly than where we can do scaffolding is the who we can do scaffolding with. And just like my second bulletin there, the who is unlimited. All people benefit from scaffolding. It's by nature tailor-made for an individual. It's not based on how you learn or how the higher skilled individual learns, but the student. So if the student is a visual learner, I would surely hope that your scaffolding meets their needs as a visual learner. Otherwise, it's kind of like, what are you doing? Well, keep in mind that first part right there. Scaffolding is flexible and tailored to the student or the less skilled individual. It's a social activity that takes advantage of the fact it's a social activity to try and pass on that knowledge. And it allows the capabilities of students, lesser skilled individuals, to increase when their mastery is just out of reach. So you can't use this to just teach somebody something absolutely complex that they've had no preparation for. No. Scaffolding is kind of what you've already got the gist for in some of the classes, which is if they're struggling with a concept and you can see that they're right there, but they need help to get there, that's when you do it. It's that moment right there. You have to keep them in their zone of proximal development, that part where they're uncomfortable, they're learning, and they're struggling, but they're so close, and then you bridge that gap right there and it will stick. And of course it can be used anywhere by anyone, save maybe a pool of lava. Maybe. One day we'll get there. School and volcanoes. Don't let the scaffolding activity deviate, or let the higher skilled individual take on too much work. So if you've passed on some of the scaffolding in the form of an activity to a student who is much more skilled, you're going to have a problem if that higher skilled student or individual gets distracted. Say you have an aide in your room, they whip out their phone, or a student just would rather do it themselves because the other person's, to them, ditzing around. You got to keep an eye on that kind of thing because the higher skilled individual is being chosen by you because they can already perform this activity and model it to its ability, their ability, perfectly. And just like at the end of the slide right there, it serves no purpose if they do it themselves. Zero. An example. Well, you're going to help Johnny learn to ride a bike, but, well, he doesn't understand the concept of how the bike won't fall down while you pedal fast enough. You already have a goal, and you already told him how it works. The momentum of the bike and the direction of the tires are facing lets it keep going. Next, you'll model it for him. Maybe you simply push the bike and point out how it does go for a short distance before falling. And then you ask leading questions. That next step in this process. Why did it fall? Were the wheels pointing the right way? And Johnny might say no, because the tires went the wrong way. Or no, there was no pedaling. And either way, as long as Johnny has an answer that makes sense, then the next step would be to build Johnny's confidence while lessening the aid he receives until he rides by himself. You might consider showing him your own slow ride in a little loop or something as a demonstration, but keep it short. It's the same concept as don't do the work for him. It could be procrastinating doing it. You just need to prove to him that it's possible if he still doesn't do it after that. And just like at the end of the slide there, I learned the ride it until you crash. I learned. I did research this. In this case study, influence of a teacher's scaffolding moves during child-led small group discussions by names I have extreme difficulty pronouncing. They did a lag sequencing study to try and see how a teacher's scaffolding moves that they used impacted child-led small group discussions. You might think, oh gosh, that is a mouthful. How do I keep track of all this? Well, in this case, let's break it down. This is a teacher scaffolding moves. So techniques a teacher's using during a child-led small group discussion. So it's small groups, but these are kind of lower 48 classes. So for those of us who live in a bush, this is more like 20 plus kid classes broken up into small groups, air quotes. And they're leading the discussions. There are 3 things that the teacher heavily focuses on. So all of the words she says, right over here, prompting for and praising the use of evidence, asking for clarification, and challenging, the verb, challenging people. Which actually comes into asking for clarification, like, can you clarify that? That's actually one of her verbal cues for her class, which they take over and use in their small group discussions, which was the entire point of this, was to see what would happen. So it starts by she leads the class, gives them a lot of tasks, talks a lot, and then the children take over. The teacher sits back. This right here. Some children appropriated scaffolding moves of the teacher and began to spontaneously employ the moves in later discussions. This right here is from the abstract in the case study I just mentioned in the other slide. Sorry, I didn't move it fast enough. I'm talking so fast. Anyway. But the entire point of it was that the students actually took the social cues, I guess. It's kind of like taking up body language of your parent or some such. They learned this social stuff, this way of asking, this way of thinking from their teacher, where just in the previous slide here, they had, there we go. This here, prompting for and praising the use of evidence, asking for clarification. This was basically 40% of all the words the teacher spoke. 40% was those two things right there. Very little of it was her basically doing a teacher lecture-centered thing, which is pretty incredible in my eyes. I should have attached a graph for you guys, hindsight 2020, but yes, the students all spoke more than the teacher during this. It was really nice. And of course, not all the students took these cues from the teacher, but enough took it that they were like, well, leaders in their groups. It kept discussions going and flowing because the teacher was good at what they did with those scaffolding moves. Right. A lot of data. What did they conclude? Well, the teacher, Miss Jackson, talked less than the entirety of her class, a counter to a 2001 study. Think about it, 2001. We're approaching like 17, 18 years ago. It stated that teachers utter 50 to 70% of all words spoken in a classroom by this guy, Kasdan, by a large margin. Well, in this one, she talked less than all of her classroom by a large margin. From then to now, I guess you could say. The effects of what she did with her scaffolding were really wide, but the big one was that the students built their own arguments and built their own skills up by bouncing these same scaffolding moves off of each other. The teacher apparently did not need to intervene almost at all, and when she did, class discussion picked up with her. So it's as if the discussions almost got more heated whenever she would participate, but she did not need to participate for discussion to happen. I don't know about you guys, but that really impresses me. Right, of course. All well and good. Well, 4 things that you guys need to remember about scaffolding. Yes, you can do it. Yes, you guys have been training to be teachers for a while now, I know. But 4 things about scaffolding that you need to take away from this is that it's not just important or something that you can do off the top of your head, but it's a system of learning that can be improved upon and used to assist with your instruction. You might think it could be easy, but if you go on without thinking about the person, the individual that you're scaffolding, you're going to fail them. It's not about failing the scaffolding exercise, it's about failing the student. You need to scaffold to the individual and to the group, and you need to know the difference. How you portray something has a great impact and far-reaching consequences to children. I meant to say consequences, I guess I auto-corrected. How you say it, phrase it, and do it affects your students. It's both more challenging than you might originally anticipate, but easier to implement once you have a goal. Here's all my sources are pretty much my cited resources. The encyclopedia, which you can look under scaffolding, great raw information there. Scaffolding language development, this is given to me by the professor. Thank you, Haiti. Excellent source for more information since it's related to language development. And of course, more raw data, but less of a case study. And that's it.
Thank you guys. See you next time.